This episode of My Two Satoshis is brought to you by Archer Tax Group. If, like me, you've incurred losses in 2018's crypto bear market, you need to contact Drew Karnowski for professional cryptocurrency tax consulting. Archer Tax Group can help you get the most from your losses from 2018. So visit archertaxgroup.com and schedule an appointment today. Mention Crypto Blood and receive 10% off of your tax planning services for any individual or business. Archer Tax Group, your crypto tax consultant. It's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another Kicking It session, people. I've got my man Brock Pierce back on for a second time. I had to get him on because we've got a lot to talk about. GOX rising, that's the hot thing right now, but we've got a few other topics to hit, man. How you doing? It's been a while. You been all right, man?
Yeah, I've been good. Keeping busy.
I got my Brock Pierce hat, but I couldn't put it on over my headphones, so I'm just gonna leave that over there. So, how are you, man? How's the bear market treating you?
Well, I love bear markets. Excuse my language, but I think bull markets produce bullshit, and bear markets fruit.
That's what I was talking to Max Kaiser about that. Like in the bear market, man, you had all these experts. They were trading experts. They knew how to read and know which ICOs were the best. It was just crazy, man. You're right. So don't confuse people out there. I've said this before. Do not confuse brains with bull markets. So that's right.
Bull markets are irrational. Everybody thinks they're a genius. You know, it's like the internet in 1999, right?
Right.
Everybody's like, oh my God, I'm so smart because, you know, I'm making money. Things are up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you were part of the whole .com blow up bubble.
Yeah, and I thought of myself as a day trader, and because I was doing well, I thought I really knew what I was doing.
That's crazy, man.
I clearly did not.
Right. The last time you were on, man, you know, the premise or the whole concept of us meeting initially was to go over this FUD that's been circling around and still on you, man. I don't understand why, but you sent me a link and you said it's been out for a minute. I don't know if have you ever shared this with anyone? Is it public, or what is this link you've had?
It's public, but I'm not, you know, I don't feel the need to share it. It's there for anyone that wants to see it.
Right. So I'll put a link in the description of this video, and actually in the chat room too, if I premiere this. And so kind of just go over what this analysis is that was done by a law firm, Gross and Belsky.
Well, it just covers all of you know, sort of the den talk. You know, people make all these statements based upon generally Medium posts or Reddit, you know, sort of things, which, you know, in the world of fake news, you know, you have varying degrees, right? Normally the top tier press have real investigative journalists that do real research. Like if you want to see, there's that Rolling Stone article. Neil Strauss, I think, spent 9 months working on that article. Yeah, you can see what an expert that's actually dug in to this has to say. There's an article that came out this week by the Times of London. You know, they cover this, but that's an in-depth sort of piece on the site that kind of covers everything in a lot of detail, and with all the exhibits and, you know, sort of accompanying documentation.
Yeah, I read through this, man. It's basically the stuff that I did my research on and found it to be true or not true as well. I'm like, you know, you got to have your own opinion and not just allow the internet, man. The internet can really snowball things, you know what I mean? And I think that's what happened for sure. So are you still going to do the tell-all like movie that we talked about? Is that something you're still, I know you're busy.
I'm not planning to make a movie, but I mean, that's, you know, what's out there right now, you know, for people to, you know, that actually care.
Okay.
You know, there's the facts.
Yeah, I'll definitely link this, guys. Take a look at it. For all the naysayers, they're still going to think you're a pedophile and all that good stuff. So, hey, you can't please them all, right?
Haters going to hate, you know.
Absolutely. So today, though, thank you for that piece too. Today we're talking about this whole GOX rising, man. I reported on it a few days ago. Tell me what's going on, man. Like Mt. Gox is one of the brands in Bitcoin. I think it's like right under the Bitcoin brand. Like you got Bitcoin, then you got Mt. Gox. So kind of tell us what you're trying to do with this Gox Rising and kind of rehabilitation and rebranding and getting a better PR out about Mt. Gox going forward.
Well, you make that comment about Bitcoin and Mt. Gox. The last time we did a poll, it's a couple of years old now, but 96% of people that had heard of Bitcoin had heard of Mt. Gox.
Yeah.
I mean, brands are almost synonymous. How did most people hear about Bitcoin for the first time? It was in the context of Mt. Gox's collapse.
Yeah.
You know, we all understand the importance of first impressions. That's how most people had their first impression of Bitcoin, in the context of money gets stolen, things get hacked, you know, pretty much all negative. And so Mt. Gox is a bad word.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mt. Gox is, you know, as an industry, one of our points of weakness. And so in life, you know, one of the opportunities we have is to take our weaknesses and make them our strengths. And that's what this idea is, you know, at a high level, is the Mt. Gox story is not over. February 28th is the 5th anniversary of the Mt. Gox bankruptcy. So this story has been running since, well, Mt. Gox was started in 2007, pivoted to Bitcoin in 2010.
Right.
And so this is, you know, a story that's been running for a long time. And like Game of Thrones, you know, I think many of us are waiting for that last season. The Mt. Gox, you know, final story, the end of this story is not yet written. And as an industry, we have the power to write the ending of that story. I, for one, think we should write, you know, a happy ending, one where the 24,000 victims or creditors, you know, are made whole if possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to do everything I can to ensure that creditors get all of their money back. Because one amazing story, you know, when Lehman Brothers or Bear Stearns collapsed, you know, was everyone made whole? Was everything taken care of?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who went to jail? Nobody.
Right.
Certainly none of the key people. And so, you know, we have an ability to demonstrate here how we are different, you know, than the old system.
So tell me about this plan, because there are some critics about the whole Gox Rising out there. I'm sure you know about it. Some people saying that Mark Karpelès never gave you over ownership of Mt. Gox. Kind of explain that whole situation if you can.
Well, yeah, I'm a little confused by why that's become the story, because I've been very clear from the moment I started talking about this that it doesn't matter who owns it, as long as the creditors get everything, right?
Right.
There's $1.2 billion of cash and coin there, and I just want to make sure the creditors get everything.
So
that's
how?
all.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter because my goal is to make the equity worthless, right? My goal is to make sure that the creditors get everything. So who cares about who owns it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only people that seem to care are those that, well, in this case, Mark Karpelès, who has a claim filed with the bankruptcy courts for over 80,000 Bitcoin. He wants basically half of the money. There's a claim currently outstanding.
How can this guy want money that he was negligent about keeping safe? I don't understand how
this is the only reason this is a topic of conversation, is because I want the creditors to receive everything. And Mark has a claim for roughly half of the money outstanding with, you know, the bankruptcy courts at this moment, at this exact moment. Well, on the other hand, he keeps saying he doesn't want anything. Well, if you don't want anything, why do you have a claim registered with the courts for half the money?
Wow.
And I imagine that's why this topic of conversation has become such a big one.
Gotcha.
Again, I don't know. My position is very clear, and I've been consistent in my statements that I want creditors to receive everything, all of the cash and coin. I want the equity to be worthless, and I'd like the creditors to get paid that money as soon as possible without the courts selling any more of the Bitcoin.
So tell me, you know, there is a rehabilitation process going on currently with Mt. Gox. Is this running concurrently with it or separate? What's going on with that and how that will intermingle? Yeah,
so when we originally did our deals with Mark and Jed, and we're trying to get involved, we drafted the first civil rehabilitation plan with the bank for the bankruptcy courts. And we took a very strong position that this thing should be rehabilitated, not liquidated. We were running around with the brand was Save Gox, and it was called Rehabilitate, Don't Liquidate. You know, it was almost like a chant of sorts. And you know, the courts decided to move forward. Well, Mark Karpellis pushed the courts into a liquidation process over a civil rehabilitation process. So for the last 5 years, we've been a supporter of civil rehabilitation. And so I'm very pleased, very happy to see that the bankruptcy courts have now decided to move down a rehabilitation process versus a liquidation process. So very happy about that. And we're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. Hopefully we are getting close to an outcome. Now, the two major issues are CoinLab is asking for $16 billion, meaning CoinLab thinks they deserve all of the Bitcoin and cash. And Mark Karpellis has a claim for roughly half. And so, you know, you still have two claims that are there that are attempting to, you know, deprive the victims of what they.
So you're inserting yourself there at the end to say neither you get anything. This all goes back to the creditors.
Well, doing what we can to try and influence the outcome to be an optimal outcome that represents our industry as a whole. So, I mean, one of the things people are like, Brock, why do you care? What's your interest? Well, I've had the pleasure of starting many companies in the space. I've had the pleasure of investing in many companies in the space. And my reason for getting involved, you know, back in early 2014 is my view is that the Mt. Gox situation was going to be very bad for Bitcoin. It was going to be very bad for our overall ecosystem. And what's good for the ecosystem is good for me. What's bad for the ecosystem is bad for me. And so this is, you know, our highest profile, sort of biggest issue as an industry. And so I care about the outcome. You know, the outcome of this is not only going to impact the 24,000 victims that have claims filed with the bankruptcy courts, but it affects our overall industry. I mean, Mt. Gox's collapse was the main culprit for the bear market of 2014 and 15.
It absolutely was. I remember. Yeah, it was.
Say that it's partially responsible for the current bear market.
Yeah, and how they're handling with liquidations.
So we should all care as an industry. I know most people, because they don't pay enough attention to this, are like, oh, who cares? Whatever, Mt. Gox has already failed. No, the impact of this event is still continuing to affect our industry. And even more than just in the context of Mt. Gox, because what happened at Mt. Gox is not an isolated incident. We have continued to have exchanges hacked one after another throughout the rest of
CX. Yeah, 15, that's the latest
17,
one.
18. And it's only the middle of February right now. And we've already had Quadriga and Cryptopia this year.
Yep.
As an industry, we as users of exchanges need to be wiser in the exchanges we choose to work with and understand how these exchanges custodian, you know, the funds that they're responsible for protecting.
So your plan is to rehabilitate, like after everything is done, you want to reopen Mt. Gox as a decentralized exchange? Is that the plan?
Well, in part, you can't really, because of where the market is today, you can't be a fully decentralized exchange and serve a lot of the market needs, specifically with on-ramps and off-ramps. Gotcha. If you want to have a connection to fiat, there is a degree of centralization that's required, but call it, relaunch as a hybrid and to create a lighthouse to show the market what exchanges should do. What are the best practices? How do we hold ourselves to the highest bar possible? And one of the main things that we can do today, at least there's two options. One is custodian, non-custodial exchanges, meaning you're using decentralized tools to protect the coins. And number two is at a minimum, at least use multi-sig. I mean, Quadriga, are you kidding me? It's 2019. Any exchange that is not using multi-sig at a minimum is something none of us should be using. And then the other thing too is remind customers of these exchanges to be their own banks. Don't leave your money sitting in exchanges as a vaulting solution. Make sure that you are vaulting your own coins. Make sure that you are being your own bank. And so that's what the opportunity here is. Mt. Gox is the biggest story we've ever had in crypto, continues to be. And what happens at Mt. Gox affects all of us. And so I'd like to create an optimal outcome. And so far, we've heard from lots of people that,
So are you getting any pushback? Where are you with the whole Gox rising right now? Is it going smoothly, or are you seeing some bumps in the road? I mean, it's normal too, but just kind of curious. If you're able to disclose,
we're receiving overwhelmingly, sort of positive support. from, call it, the industry at large.
Okay.
Obviously, creditors, there's 24,000 of them, many of whom have registered now at Gox Rising. We're getting a lot of support, but it's a mixed bag. I mean, you have 24,000 victims that have been waiting for their money for 5 years. So, understandably so, people are very upset, and they have reason to be. And so we're trying to connect with every creditor we can, trying to have conversations with every creditor we can, and, being supportive in the ways that we can. And, we're not going to know the outcome of all of this until it's over. But, we're doing our part to try and be supportive.
Yeah, so if you guys are listening and want to join the movement, goxrising.com, check it out, sign up, and support the movement, man. I think that's a good one, man. Like I said, Mt. Gox is the biggest brand in crypto, and to see that revitalized would be great, and revitalized in a positive manner. That would be awesome, man. So
that's the idea. We get to write the ending of this story. Do we want this to always be, the main point of criticism for our industry? If you can take your weaknesses and turn them into strengths, it's like Joseph Campbell. If you're not familiar with Joseph Campbell and what's known as the hero's journey, the rise, the fall, it's a story of redemption. It's a story of a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Right.
I'm a storyteller. I like good stories. I think that this one can be rewritten to have a happy ending. It doesn't have to end in just blood and tears.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree, man. So tell us about this EOS proxy. I heard this come across the newswire maybe about 2 weeks ago or something like that. But what's going on with that? You're trying to help flatten the playing field for votes. Tell us about this EOS thing, because that is still, to me, I love EOS, but that is one thing I'm still seeing we haven't, kind of gotten through, is the distribution of votes. So kind of explain your proxy and what you're trying to attempt in the EOS community.
Well, there's a couple of key points. One is not enough of the EOS token holders are voting today. Yeah. People need to show up and rock or brock the vote, right? Get involved, be engaged. If people want to see the EOS price increase, one of the best things they can do to facilitate that is start staking your coins, start voting your coins, start participating. An active and engaged community is going to produce better results than one that is not.
Right.
So, get involved. One of the problems, though, is, there's two problems. One is, some people are still looking for, how do I stake? They're concerned about losing their coins, and that's totally understandable. And in the beginning of the EOS launch, you didn't have the wallets, you didn't have the things to do this easily, but the tools are there now. And you can go to brockpierce.io and you can get some information on what we suggest in terms of how to stake your coins. And there's lots of resources out there, but one of the best things you can do for EOS is get engaged, stake your coins and begin voting. So one of the challenges that you have as a token holder is you have the ability to vote on up to 30 block producers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you choose 30 block producers? It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of research. You have to spend a lot of time. And most people don't have the time nor the interest to go research, all the block producers so they can pick 30 of them. And so these proxies are a really interesting sort of solution for token holders. And that is, instead of picking 30 block producers yourself, go pick a proxy, that is going to do that work for you. It's liquid democracy. You can pull your tokens at any time, and proxies should say who they're voting for and why. There's going to be another big update to that later tonight for us, in terms of like you see there with EOS Sphere and you see with EOS Nairobi. Mm-hmm. We're going to be updating all of the 30 that we've selected are going to have a write-up similar to that,
nice.
A very detailed sort of write-up, so you can understand who we're picking and why.
Right.
What our process is, so that you don't necessarily have to do the work. I encourage everyone to do it themselves, first and foremost. But in the event that you don't have the time nor the interest right now, at least vote your tokens with a proxy.
Yeah. Like you said, some people just don't even have the interest to, but they do want to support the right BP. So that's cool, man. And I see you guys got my team EOS Detroit on there. That's my squad. I got to give it up for EOS Detroit. That's my team.
By the way, Detroit is one of the cities that I spend so much time thinking about.
You should come up here, man. We've got, I've got some connections for for you to definitely make some people in the know in the city. So
yeah, no, Detroit, reminds me a little bit of Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, it's one of these really underappreciated parts of the United States. Most people don't even know Puerto Rico is the United States, right? As I like to say, Puerto Rico is the first state that's not the 51st state, but the forgotten state.
Yeah, that's true.
Detroit is one of those places as well that played such an important part in the development of the United States as we know it.
Absolutely.
But because of the changes in the automotive industry and whatnot, Detroit is another one of those places with extraordinary potential that's just kind of had a really rough few decades. And so I see extraordinary potential in Detroit. Love to see all the startup sort of culture that's happening there. I'm a big fan of Detroit. Love Detroit, support it in every way I can.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So definitely thank you for supporting EOS Detroit on that one. Yeah, man, I know you heard this JP Morgan coin. What in the hell is going on, man? When we last talked, I don't think the whole stablecoin movement was really there yet. We of course have Tether, but since then, man, it's been a lot of stablecoins that have come to the market. I think personally that is the wave of the future for cryptocurrencies. Like if I see in 5 years, you ask me, how will people be using cryptocurrencies in commerce? I see it through stable coins. So kind of explain your thoughts about this JP Morgan coin and Jamie Dimon and all that stuff, man. This is interesting.
A lot of people may disagree with my view, but I think it's great.
Okay. Yeah, explain why.
I've been in the stablecoin sort of business since, call it, the beginning.
Yeah.
Having been one of the founders of Tether. And my original sort of vision for Tether was to demonstrate that we can tokenize a dollar, right? We can tokenize a dollar. And in the original business plan and presentation that we made to, call it prospective investors like Sequoia and whatnot, is that we're going to prove out this concept. And then we can go take this to the banks and potentially central banks to help banks and governments tokenize their currencies. And so I think this JP Morgan coin is a big validation for, sort of the original idea, which is to give fiat currencies the same capability as Bitcoin, to give it the same speed and efficiency and security. Now, do I think the JP Morgan coin is a good implementation of it? No. But I think in terms of the macro messaging, Jamie Dimon has been one of the most vocal kind of anti-Bitcoin people we know. He's been, also positive about blockchain. But, as a macro message, what does this say to the world? It says the things that we're doing here are real. This is a huge, I think, validation of what we do. Do I think they're going to be very successful? Unknown, hopefully not. But either way, it's a massive validation for our industry. To
be honest with you,
public opponent to what we do. And
I don't see how they could.
He's calling the kettle black, right?
I don't see how they couldn't be successful though, Brock. Like I see them being fully successful with that. They've got all the verticals to implement that. I mean, I know initially it's just going to be interbank stuff, but come on. I mean, eventually that they could take over like Visa, MasterCard networks.
Yeah, I'm wearing some Ripple XRP socks today because of this. Well, because
Ripple's in trouble, bro.
Well, Blockchain Capital Fund 2, our largest investment, was in Ripple Labs, and so a big part of what Ripple has been doing is building an interbank settlement system to potentially replace SWIFT and ACH. And
that's a direct competitor. This is
JP Morgan in that business. I think what's really happening is they're they're attempting to compete with Ripple more than anything else.
Yeah.
So, I'm rooting for Ripple versus JP Morgan because we like rooting for underdogs. We like to root for our own. And this is one of the things that, really bothers me about, part of our industry is the amount of criticism, that we have, on other people's projects. As I always say, I'm chain agnostic. People saying my chain is better than your chain, my coin is better than your coin. I find that maximalism to be the equivalent of religious fundamentalism. Yeah, and we've learned over the last few thousand years that's, you don't have to love every project, but, I don't, unless people are operating out of bad intentions, a lot less hate, a lot more love. You know,
I hear that.
If anyone who succeeds in making the world a better place, we all win. So we're a small community still, even though we continue to grow. You know, we need to be supporting each other, you know, certainly not undermining each other to the extent we can.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I agree. But it was funny because I did a video the other day, like, man, JP Morgan is going straight at XRP's neck. Ripple is definitely in trouble. So we'll have to see what happens with that.
Well, the one good news, you know, the piece of the argument I make of why Ripple is still going to be in decent shape vis-a-vis JP Morgan is if you're another major bank, do you want to hand over or concede your business to JP Morgan, or would you rather work with an independent third party like Ripple Labs?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you're Chase or Credit Suisse or Bank of America or Wells Fargo, just to use some other big U.S. bank names, do you want JP Morgan to be, you know, do you want JP Morgan to be more successful? You know, in some ways, you're better off working with a smaller startup like Ripple Labs in comparison,
mm-hmm.
and the independence that provides. You know, a lot of banks, I would imagine, are going to struggle with, you know, handing over a core component of their business to a competitor.
Right.
Ripple is not a competitor to any banks. Ripple is an enabling technology that banks can benefit from.
I just never liked Ripple just because maybe it's because of the people who supported it. It's to me, it's not really a cryptocurrency. It's more so maybe a platform for interbank lending and settlement. But like, I think in the mania of 2017, a lot of people went and gravitated toward that instead of what I wanted them to gravitate toward, which was more decentralized cryptocurrencies, you know? So we'll see, though. We'll see what happens.
I support all the things because I think there's many use cases for this technology, and that being one of them. That's not the one that gets me excited. It's not like, oh my God, this is going to change the world and empower billions of people.
Right.
But Ripple in their own way, is moving the ball forward.
Yeah, I hear you.
And they've probably done the best job of any project in the space of showing the incumbent world, right? Showing the establishment that there are uses for this technology. And so Ripple has done a great job. I mean, I imagine JP Morgan would not be launching what they're doing today if it weren't for Ripple Labs and Tether.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So in their own way, they're moving the ball forward. I think JP Morgan's validation of what we're doing is a good thing.
So tell me, man, as we wrap up here on this Kicking It session, what do you have going on in the future here, near future? Are you planning on announcing anything? Can you tell us anything new that you haven't told anyone? Let me know what's going on in 2019.
Well, Crystal and I are having a baby in 4 weeks. Crystal's having a baby, so we have a child on the way.
Oh, all right. Let's give it up for Baby Brock. We're going to call him Baby Brock.
Yeah, so this is, yesterday was Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah.
So, love the red.
Yeah.
And so, that's exciting. And we've got lots of stuff going on. I mean, I don't sit around with idle hands.
I know.
I stay busy, if anything, too busy.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe too busy. Yeah, that's crazy. That's good, man. Well, much success to you and everyone over there in your camp for 2019. And that's pretty much it, guys. I want to definitely thank you for joining in this Kicking It session with Brock Pierce. It's your boy Crypto Blood, and we out of here. Holla.